Number 10. The Flash. One of the most recognizable superheroes in pop culture, the Flash is perhaps one of the fastest beings in DC Comics. While Barry Allen is the most well-known iteration of the character in the comics, there are many other versions, but Wally West is arguably faster than the former as the Scarlet Speeder. In 2009's The Flash, the Human Race comic series, West's version of the Flash reached something called trans-time velocity, which exceeded any speed theoretically possible in science. As a speedster, the Flash can easily travel well beyond the speed of light, which gives him the ability to time travel. This makes the character one of the most potent DC superheroes who can manipulate time to his advantage if need be. The ability to do this is indeed extremely powerful, but he isn't the hardest hitter nor the most durable. So while he is worth mentioning, he is not really powerful enough to make it any higher compared to others on this list. Number 9. Martian Manhunter. I think it's incredibly easy to overlook Martian Manhunter's incredible capabilities. Yes, he is more well known for being a telepath and a shapeshifter, but this guy packs a hell of a punch with the Martian abilities of phasing, Martian vision, and density alteration. Now, his probably most powerful form was when he became Furnace, completely negating his weakness for fire. But Furnace was a villain and therefore cannot be on this list. But in DC 1 Million, we get a John Johns who leads a war against Darkseid and gets him to surrender to the Source Wall, becoming trapped inside of it. The Source Wall in return gave John one wish. His wish was to become one with Mars, meaning John became a living planet while maintaining his multiversal telepathy and his genius intelligence. We don't get to see much of this version of John, but we can guess a lot of things about this version. Firstly, his weakness to fire is probably non-existent, because I mean, people gotta make fire on the planet, you know? We can probably assume John keeps his other Martian abilities to a degree as well, and there's also the possibility that the passage of time has increased those natural abilities considering he's defeated Darkseid. We can also assume he would now also have the powers that usually come with being a living planet, like weather manipulation and control of the elements. He can control the sands of Mars to an incredible degree too, so there's that as well. Number 8. Power Girl. There have been many versions of Supergirl throughout the years. None were remembered as fondly as Kara Zor-El, the cousin of Superman. While Kal-El was rocketed to Earth as a child from a dying Krypton, Supergirl was sent out from Argo City as a teenager. She became trapped in suspended animation until she finally arrived on Earth, where she soaked up a ton of solar radiation. Now yes, Supergirl is powerful, but there is a more powerful alternate version of her in the form of Power Girl. Power Girl has all the powers and abilities of Kryptonian and is pretty much just like Supergirl, with a major difference being she is older than her counterpart, and therefore Karen Starr, Power Girl, is far more powerful. Over the years she has evolved again and again to fit the continuity, but she's still considered one of the strongest DC superheroes. Power Girl has been able to knock out Superman in just one punch when she was needed to. She can stand up to Supergirl and even Wonder Woman in the heat of combat, and she's even been able to beat up someone as powerful as Darkseid.
At number 7 is Marvel 1602. This is a fun one, but it's definitely quite bizarre at the same time. It might be pretty obvious by the name, but basically, this universe tells the stories of the heroes and villains we know today as if they lived in the 1600s. With Count Otto von Doom ruling a medieval Latveria, heroes like Matthew Murdoch, a blind mercenary for hire, and Peter Parquois, an orphan recruited by Sir Nicholas Fury, have to put a stop to him. Another bizarre thing about this world is that mutants aren't seen as superheroes and aren't part of a team called the X-Men, but are instead known as witch breeds, and they are hunted down systematically by anyone who will dare challenge them. It's definitely a fun world to explore, but it sort of gives me the creeps as well. At number 6, we have the Zombieverse. This is one I'm sure many of you are familiar with, as it's become pretty popular over the years. Basically, Earth 2149 is overrun by zombies, and they don't stop short of turning superheroes to the ghoulish side as well as humans. What we end up with is a whole universe with superpowered zombies jumping and flying around, trying to destroy everything in their paths, including their former teammates and lifelong friends. It's a strange place that puts into question the integrity of superpowered beings and sort of tarnishes the dignity of all our favorite heroes all at once. But it's all in good fun in the end, and we get an exciting, gory, and very weird read as a result. At number 5 is the Amalgam Universe. This is a strange one because it outlines the event of a what-if scenario scenario where Marvel and DC characters are mashed into hybrids. In Marvel vs. DC number 3, characters from Marvel's Earth 616 and DC's New Earth morph together, leaving us with some pretty cool but ultimately just flat out weird characters, like a Superman Captain America mashup and Iron Man getting a power ring turning him into Iron Lantern. And of course, with these newly powered up Amalgam heroes, there also has to be a mashup version of the two different worlds' villains too, right? So we get Thanoside, a very cleverly named mashup of Darkseid and Thanos. What makes this universe so weird is that it's a very rare example of the two comic book companies coming together in unison. And the resulting contents are just as bizarre as this rare partnership is. So there you have it. The Weird World of the Amalgam Universe at number 5. And at number 4 is Weird World. I feel like there's no need to explain why this one ended up on the list given the title. But weirdly enough, Weird World isn't actually that weird, all things considered. Weird enough to make it on this list, but I still feel like they had an opportunity to make a world so weird that they clinched the number 1 spot on this list. But still, it's a weird one. I am tired of saying that word. It's a Marvel universe that features magical creatures like goblins, dragons, and zombies. And there are just perpetual battles going on there between gods representing dark and light. It's hard to tell how it ties in with Marvel superheroes, so in the context of the Marvel multiverse, it's definitely weird and a bit out of place, but it also just seems like a typical medieval fantasy landscape to me. It's almost weirder that this world doesn't really match its name, but I guess weird is weird. At number 3 is the Marvel Apes universe. Featured in the Marvel Apes miniseries, this alternate universe naturally features ape people versions of all the heroes we know and love, and everybody else for that matter. Basically, apes roam the earth, and even the Avengers have changed their name to suit the environment, being widely known as the Ape-Vengers. But if you think that's weird, it gets even more bizarre when we learn that Captain America is secretly a vampire who drinks the blood of his enemies. And then eventually it's further revealed that it was never Captain America in the first place, but a Nazi vampire who shapeshifted into Cap years ago after drinking his blood. I honestly don't know what the writers were thinking with this one, but at least it was able to rank high on this list. That's one thing it's got going for itself. At number 2 is the universe where Aunt May is bitten by the radioactive spider. In a short feature story of What If issue 23, we see what it would be like if Aunt May were to take up the mantle of Spider-Man with web-slinging powers and all. And the result is something so bizarre that I've already covered this universe on at least 3 other lists so far. It just stands out. And not necessarily for the right reasons, always. I think they sort of lose me when Aunt May starts using the dough from a bread loaf she's baking as a weapon, but this is one of the best examples of the fun that writers can have with the concept of a multiverse, where basically anything goes as long as it's set in another universe, which is kind of a blessing and a curse for Marvel all at the same time. At least Spider-May is paired up against Leapfrog, because if she successfully took down any truly reputable villain with her dough lasso, I think I'd have lost a decent chunk of respect for Marvel, if I'm being completely honest. At number 1 is the Larval Earth universe. In this world, all the Marvel heroes and villains alike have evolved into cute and cuddly animals, with characters like Daredevil, Nick Fury, and the Agents of Sheep. There's no wonder why this universe exists as a one-off, although it may have been just weird enough that it went full circle and became kind of iconic. I mean, the ironically popular Spider-Ham, aka Peter Porker, also comes out of this alternate universe, so there's that. Larval Earth is probably the weirdest universe to actually be considered part of the official Marvel canon, and with villains like Kangaroo the Conqueror, Sand Manatee, and Magsquito, readers are left wondering whether or not this whole multiverse concept is going too far. But personally, I think the odd, fun, and weird universe never hurt nobody. I mean, who could be mad at Black Panda? I mean, that's not much of a stretch considering he's normally named after an animal, right? At number 10 is the Punch Dimension. This probably wins the award for the most uncomfortable and painful universe on this list, unless you're Cyclops, in which case it's actually probably the most useful, but still pretty painful, I'd imagine. In fact, the Punch Dimension is where Cyclops gets all of his power from, because instead of him actually generating all his power from within, his eyes are actually known to be doorways to this dimension, which he can summon kinetic energy out of on command. But if anyone else were to travel there, they'd probably die immediately. Honestly, Cyclops probably would too. To think that there's just a dimension out there that consists of pure concentrated kinetic energy and nothing else is definitely bizarre, if not terrifying. At number 9 is Marvel Noir. On Earth 90214, all of the most popular heroes get their own retellings through the lens of the 1920s and 1930s era. And although I think this is a really cool idea, some of the characters that get their own noir makeovers just come off as a bit bizarre. A few of them give me that uncanny feeling where I can't tell whether the steampunk aesthetic is really cool for them or just doesn't work as smoothly as others, like the noir Iron Man or the pirate portrayal of Namor. But overall, we do end up with Spider-Man Noir, who has become a well-known alternate version of the hero, especially after being voiced by Nicolas Cage in the Into the Spider-Verse animated film. Don't get me wrong, I actually think this universe is really cool, but it's also very weird, hence why it's made it onto this list. At number 8, we have the Pocket Universe. This one is definitely a bizarre concept that really puts things into perspective on and off the page. Franklin Richards, son of Reed Richards and the Invisible Woman, has some really powerful abilities, and in one instance in particular, he shows what he's capable of in a really impressive way. The young boy harnesses the dimensions of space, time, and reality to develop his very own universe, which he creates to be small enough to fit in his own pocket, hence the name. And although we don't see everything that goes on inside this fabricated pocket universe, we can assume that no matter what, it's gotta be a weird existence. Especially when a ball of lint in the boy's pocket is probably the size of thousands of solar systems put together.
Number 7. Shazam. Billy Batson is just a wee lad who, thanks to the wizard Shazam, could transform into a powerful magical hero named Captain Marvel, or if you prefer, just Shazam. By saying his magic word, he gained an array of attributes including the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. Shazam has proven himself to be nearly as strong as Superman, with the two having fought to a draw many times, with Shazam actually having an edge in the form of his magical abilities. Shazam defeated foes as powerful as Black Adam multiple times and went pound for pound, shot for shot with godlike people such as Hercules and the Spectre. And that's before we even get into Jokerized Shazam or even pre-Crisis Shazam, who had basically unlimited strength. Like so much so that he pulled the Earth back into spinning again. I don't know how it stopped spinning, it seems kind of like it would be impossible, but comic books, okay? He's been shown to be as strong enough to move planets and survive nearly the same amount of stuff as Superman, so I'm gonna place him here comfortably. Number 6. Wonder Woman. Gifted with the powers of the gods, Wonder Woman has many of the same abilities Superman possesses, including strength, speed, and durability. However, Wonder Woman's Amazonian training sets her a little apart as an amazing warrior. It's been debated for years whether Diana could beat Superman in a fight, and while she's shown to be capable of hurting him at the least, she doesn't have the same raw amount of power. Instead, Wonder Woman dominates her opponents through a combination of her special abilities, superior tactics, and special equipment given to her by the gods. But she has been elevated beyond this. When Diana was empowered with the World Forge and the anti-crisis energy at the end of Doom War / during Death Metal, she had enough power to shake stars and phase throughout time through sheer strength. She had displayed the ability to shrink an entire planet and was able to link everyone together and restored their memories as one history, as in all of DC's continuity. She has cosmic awareness, she's able to see multiple events during the war against the Batman who laughs at once, as well as precognition and retrocognition. She was crazy powerful for that time. Number 5. Superman Prime. The Kal-El, who lived to the 853rd century, survived as long as he did by literally becoming the living extension of the sun. He left the Earth somewhere in the late 21st century when everyone he cared about died, and traversed the entire DC multiverse, going beyond time and space, and has been said to have reached as far as heaven and hell themselves. He was created by Grant Morrison and Val Semeiks and first appeared in DC 1,000,000 number 4 in 1998. Now, this version of Superman has pretty much all of the same general powers of his normal self, only Superman Prime remained in Earth's sun for 15,000 years, increasing his abilities to immeasurable levels. He is known to dwarf the might of even the massively powerful Kal Kent, who is himself more powerful than the gravitational pull of a collapsing star and is multiple times faster than the speed of light. But he is still kinda just Superman, who can do a hell of a lot by just strengthening the heck out of it. Number 4. Elaine Bellock. Bet you weren't expecting to see this girl here. But Elaine Bellock is the successor to the throne of heaven, and that's quite something in my opinion. Elaine has got the powers of atomic manipulation, magic, immortality, omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. While you may not expect it, she is one of the strongest inhabitants of the DC universe. Compared to other characters on this list, Elaine is a newer addition to the DC canon as she first appeared in Lucifer #4 in September of 2000. But despite that, she has quickly climbed the ranks of DC's most formidable characters, and that's before she gains even more power after Fenrir the Wolf de-lifes her father, effectively making her the ruler of heaven after the presence departs. Since she isn't really a hero and is more kind of just like both good and bad, she does align good more than not, and I found it kind of hard to find a proper place to put her on this list, so I'm gonna go with 4, and we'll suffer the consequences of my decision. Number 3. Captain Atom. Nathaniel Atom was transformed into Captain Atom in the 60s after being semi-forced to participate in a potentially fatal experiment sitting at ground zero of a nuclear explosion encased in an alien metal. The explosion didn't kill him though. What it did do was bond the alien metal to his flesh, giving him superpowers and throwing him 20 so years forward into the present day. The alien metal gave him incredible abilities such as flight, matter manipulation, energy manipulation, time manipulation, energy absorption, telepathy, spatial manipulation, quantum manipulation, force field creation, time travel, magic, and mind manipulation, and control of the quantum field. These powers have let him perform some insane feats, like creating a universe within the quantum field and later destroying that universe, fighting Superboy Prime, easily defeating a team composed of multiple versions of Atom, before absorbing them and creating an explosion powerful enough to destroy a universal space-time continuum. He is truly an insanely strong being, and I would be ashamed to not include him on this list. Number 2. The Spectre. One of the most powerful beings in the DC universe is the Spectre. He is the biblical god's spirit of vengeance. He blesses whoever his host is with nearly unlimited magical potential, flight, invisibility, and intangibility. The Spectre can inflict death with a glance, revive dead men, materialize in multiple locations simultaneously. He has molecular reconstruction. He can heal wounds with a touch and can teleport as well as alter his size, implying he has matter manipulation abilities. The power of the Spectre is so great it needs a human host to keep him in check, which doesn't really make sense. Jim Corrigan, Hal Jordan, and Crispus Allen have each taken control of the spirit of vengeance in order to enact their own versions of justice onto the world. One of the Spectre's most impressive physical feats is the fact he could engage the Anti-Monitor in hand-to-hand combat for control of all creation. It's hard to find heroes more powerful than the Spectre, but there is one. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan. When I began to look up just what John Osterman, otherwise known as Dr. Manhattan's powers and feats were, well, the list could kinda take up nearly half the length of this video. So let's go through some of them, shall we? After he was destroyed and reconstituted from the atomic experiment gone wrong, John has no need for food, sleep, or oxygen, and no longer ages and can regenerate from any injury. He has nigh omniscience and possesses an understanding of the workings of the universe on a cosmic scale. He has reality warping and matter manipulation powers, allowing him to end literally everything, which he foresaw himself doing, so he obviously has precognition even as far as a millennium, and can even see alternate futures. He has causality and time manipulation, which allowed him to return the metaverse to how it was before his interference and remove 10 years from the universe's timeline, creating the New 52. He obviously has time travel, which he's used to travel back in time and save Jor-El right before Krypton's destruction. John experiences all the reboots in DC continuity, and yet he remains unaffected, and additionally, John exists in every timeline all at once, meaning that he has duplication and dimensional travel abilities as well. He possesses elemental manipulation, creating a ring of blue fire, producing an oxygen field, creating water, and producing electricity. Saying he has enhanced senses is kind of an understatement, as he can read atoms, sense tachyons, knew someone didn't have cancer with a glance, and heard a heartbeat from someone else's womb. He can phase through things, create human life, made plants grow, teleports an entire crowd of people away, he has instantly analyzed and learned magic after being attacked with it, and absorbed energy from a Green Lantern ring and absorbed magical attacks. Dr. Manhattan is more than a god.
Number 10. Miracle Man. It's kind of weird to think, but Miracle Man exists over at Marvel Comics. Although admittedly, the story of Miracle Man feels like it would fit perhaps a bit better over at a publisher like Dynamite Entertainment based on the story. It seems like a narrative that would fit more comfortably next to Dynamite's The Boys. It's a bleak story about a madman who experimented on basically young orphans using alien tech in order to try and create the perfect being. The power that they wield, however, comes both with perks as well as devastating setbacks, with the young sidekick of Marvel Man, later renamed Miracle Man, actually being driven mad by the power he wields and ending up ultimately becoming the world's greatest supervillain, despite inside still just being a young boy. When you think about it, it's pretty crazy to think that Miracle Man is like a part of Marvel. That's wild. Of course, at least it's self-contained within its own world, but still, it's a pretty dark story over there in Earth 18. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button? Like it. Number 9. Larval Earth. Larval Earth is one of the names given to the homeworld of Spider-Ham. Here, all superheroes and supervillains are anthropomorphic creatures. This world is also similar in its style to classic animated slapstick cartoons such as Bugs Bunny. In my book, the cartoon physics involved here also makes Spider-Ham one of the most powerful Spider-Man alternates around, as he can pretty much survive almost anything and never really has to fear dying. This Earth is designated Earth 8311. Number 8. The Cancerverse. The Cancerverse is a reality that almost threatens to take over the rest of the multiverse, if you can believe it. In this universe, life finally beat death, which was completely eradicated. Now, while this might sound pretty good on paper, I mean, not dying sounds pretty great, in practice it actually was not so great. This is because of the manner in which it was eradicated, and also because without death, there is nothing to keep life in check, so it kind of runs rampant and becomes terrible. The universe as a result became corrupted, basically turning into a living corpse. This reality came to be because Marvel's Captain Marvel made a deal with the Many-Angled Ones to cure his cancer. As a result, this universe ended up being infiltrated by the Many-Angled Ones, who are basically like the elder gods of Marvel Comics, and they bent the entire universe to their will.
Number 7. Dawnbreaker. Of all the Dark Knights recently introduced in Dark Knight's Metal, aside from their leader, the Dawnbreaker stands among the others as one of the most creative and possibly terrifying combinations. This blending of Bruce Wayne with Green Lantern, while based on two heroes, is definitely not a good guy. After Bruce Wayne's tragic loss of his parents, the Green Lantern ring comes to him and grants him the powers of a Green Lantern, right there in the alley. Now, if you know Batman, you'll know that he has likely one of the strongest wills on Earth, even though that's not really talked about. So strong in fact that it allows him to overpower the programming of the Green Lantern ring and do things that Green Lanterns are not supposed to do, like using his monstrous hard-light constructs to take down criminals permanently, or like taking out the whole Green Lantern Corps and the Guardians of the Universe. Stuff like that. He is a crazy powerful version of Batman, and I think it would be really cool if someone could put him on the big screen, in a sort of superhero horror movie or something like that. Number 6. The Drowned. Bryce Wayne was the Batwoman of the Dark Multiverse Earth 11, and this vigilante had a romantic relationship with a certain Sylvester Kyle. When Kyle lost his life to rogue metahumans, it flicked a switch inside of Bryce, and she decided to systematically take down every single metahuman she could find. The craziest thing is that she did just that, wiping out every single metahuman who walked on land. But Bryce didn't think about the metahumans of the sea. Just 18 months after taking out the last land-based metahuman, Aquawoman and the Atlanteans revealed themselves and returned to the surface from years of self-imposed exile. While they came in peace, Bryce had such a mistrust of anyone, especially these Atlanteans that were obviously also metahumans. When peace talks devolved to an all-out war, Bryce modified her human form with biochemical augmentations, like the ability to control water, breathing underwater, healing faster, and bolstering her muscular, skeletal, and bodily tissue density. She gave herself a kind of dark hydrokinesis which could corrupt those fighting against her into ravenous sea beasts under her command, and designed her own army of hybridized sea creatures called dead water, all of which was bolstered up by the trident that she pried from the cold hands of a completely decimated Aquawoman. She then drowned the world, and it was then that she was contacted by the Batman Who Laughs. Number 5. Cyborg Batman. Yes, there is a Batman-Cyborg hybrid who is part of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights, and yes, he is terrifyingly awesome. Murder Machine first appears in Dark Days the Casting in the Dark Multiverse Earth -44. In this world, this evil Batman cyborg comes about after the passing of Alfred Pennyworth in the Batcave by a group of Batman's villains. As Bruce Wayne's father figure and closest friend, Bruce took this loss hard, and he blamed himself. He asked Cyborg to make an Alfred Cyborg AI called Alfred Protocol in order to help Bruce like Alfred used to do. Unfortunately, like most AI in fiction, it went kinda mad with its directive of protecting Batman. It spread like a virus, took down all of the villains and then all of the heroes, and even took over Batman's own body since it didn't believe that he could protect himself well enough. And Batman just didn't want to be separated from Alfred, so he was totally cool with it. Number 4. Devastator. On alternate Earth -1, Batman and Superman were pals and everything was dandy. Until one day Superman changed and rampaged, turning on humanity. Superman took out almost everyone, and Batman tried his best to help bring his friend back. But once Superman took out Lois Lane and then cut off Batman's arm, there was really no going back from that point. Batman decided to inject himself with the Doomsday virus, turning him into the Devastator, powering him up enough to take out Superman but also making him lose all sympathy. He still retains all the knowledge of Bruce Wayne plus the fighting skill, and he acts as the muscle for the Dark Knights. Truly a monstrous and terrifying Batman. Number 3. Eradicator Lois. For this point, we are going back in time to the infamous death of Superman. When Superman fell in the fight between himself and Doomsday, it didn't hit anyone as hard as it hit Lois Lane. Well, in the Dark Multiverse, something curious happened. After some time passed and Lois saw the effects of a Superman-less world, she eventually traveled to the Fortress of Solitude to return Superman's cape. What she never expected was for the Kryptonian Eradicator to show up. This defender of Krypton is the reason that Superman does eventually come back, placing Clark in the Kryptonian life matrix that was supposed to revive Superman. In this story though, it takes longer than expected, and so, assuming that the revival was a failure, the Eradicator instead places the powers of Superman into the body of Lois Lane. Unfortunately, this is the Dark Multiverse though, and so this newly superpowered Lois Lane throws almost all caution to the wayside and uses her powers recklessly, saving the day, sure, but with no regard for collateral damage or repercussions. She ends wars, feeds the hungry, destroys the military-industrial complex, all that good stuff, but she also wipes out countless lives, including Batman's, and she's even responsible for the fall of Superman again when he does finally return. The whole story is pretty tragic, but that also makes it one of the best ones to come out of the Dark Multiverse, in my opinion. Number 2. The Batman Who Laughs. The Batman Who Laughs is arguably one of the most dangerous versions of Batman who has ever lived, other than Batman himself. If you don't know yet, he is a Dark Multiverse version of Batman who took down the Joker, but inadvertently infected himself with a strain of Joker toxin. The resulting transformation turns this version of Bruce Wayne into an amalgamation of Joker and Batman. All the intelligence and resourcefulness and martial skill of Batman mixed with the buck-wild, psychotic, murderous mind of the Joker. He is pure chaos and destruction, and he lays waste to his own Bat family and the whole Justice League. He has a pack of Jokerized Robins, and he is the leader of the Dark Knights. He is also a lieutenant of the Dark God Barbados, and he convinced Perpetua, the original creator of the multiverse, to choose him as her lieutenant, eventually acquiring cosmic power and becoming an even bigger threat than even Perpetua herself. And finally, in at number 1, it's Saint Batman. As some of you may know, when Bane broke the back of Bruce Wayne in the Batman Nightfall storyline, Bruce was briefly replaced as the Dark Knight in favor of John Paul Valley, otherwise known as the somewhat extreme crime fighter Azrael. Eventually, the status quo was returned and Bruce took the mantle of Batman back, but as you know, in the dark multiverse, everything can and will happen, and so of course, we see the dark outcome of what would happen if Bruce never got to take back his cowl. In the dark multiverse version of Batman Nightfall, John Paul Valley doesn't return the mantle, and instead, believing himself to be the best successor to the Batman name, he defeats Bruce Wayne and the entire Bat family. Over the next 30 years, John Paul, now going by Saint Batman, has destroyed and rebuilt the city of Gotham. He stripped Bruce of his arms and legs and keeps Bruce on life support, just trying to get Bruce to admit that John Paul was the right choice for the role of Batman. Unfortunately, Saint Batman had crossed the wrong people, and he suffered a pretty brutal defeat at the hands of Lady Shiva, the son of Bane, and a restored Cyborg Batman. Starting off the list today at number 10 is Red Death. The Dark Multiverse was given to us largely by telling the story of multiple different versions of Batman who have each been twisted into a corrupted, villainous version of Bruce Wayne. Brought together by the Batman Who Laughs, the Dark Knights are basically like an evil collection of Batman from across the Dark Multiverse, each one standing in or representing a member of the Justice League. Arguably one of the most popular of these Batmen would be Red Death, an evil Bruce Wayne with the powers of the Flash. In his dark reality, Bruce Wayne was pushed to the limit after losing so many of his sidekicks, which should be a good reason for why he should stop recruiting younglings to be his Robins, but I digress. Believing that he needed to be more brutal in his crime fighting, and that he would be better at using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, Bruce took down Flash's rogues, took their equipment, and then used it against his fellow Justice Leaguer. Batman then strapped Barry to his Batmobile, fused it together with the Cosmic Treadmill, and then he drove it all into the Speed Force, absorbing Barry and his powers. Bruce, now empowered with the Speed Force and much more evil than he should be, became the Red Death and joined with the Batman Who Laughs and his Dark Knights. Number 9. Last Son. While the majority of characters given to us from DC's Dark Multiverse are alternates of Batman, thanks to the Batman Who Laughs and his Dark Knights, the Dark Multiverse is a place where everything can go wrong with anyone. Probably the most alarming of the Dark Multiverse alternates would be the dark versions of Superman, and the Last Son, in my mind, stands above the rest. This version of Kal-El came from a dark universe corrupted by the Darkest Night, and instead of crash landing straight on Earth from the destruction of Krypton, Superman's rocket got lost and exposed to the cosmic storm of a black hole. When he finally reached his destination, Earth, the last son of Krypton was burning with the energy of 1,000,000 suns. It sounds super cool, and Last Son looks absolutely amazing, but his whole concept is based on Superman's fear of becoming overcharged by the sun, and his capabilities are through the roof. He's terrifying. Number 8. Robin King. Probably the most depraved, psychotic, and disturbing of the Batman Who Laughs posse would have to be the Robin King. Instead of becoming Batman, this young Bruce Wayne lost his parents just like every other, only it was by his own hand. This Bruce was depraved basically from birth, so much so that it even scared his version of Alfred Pennyworth, who still continued to protect the young Wayne. After the passing of Joe Chill and Bruce's parents, the young fella found that he felt mainly cheer from all that altercation. He was inspired by a robin singing and how the bird is known for taking over the nests of other birds. Under that ideology, he began to put together an arsenal and a utility belt, which he would then use to take out police officer James Gordon and Alfred once they were able to prove that Bruce was responsible for the passing of his own parents. Robin King then stuffed the Flash's mom inside Barry's ring, he took out the Arcane family and obtained the Rot, he somehow managed to take out Swamp Thing, and he got away with it all because everyone thought he was just some kid. This guy even obtained and then modified the anti-life equation, a manhunt consisting of Adam Strange, Balloon Buster, Enemy Ace, Firestorm, Hawkgirl, and Hawkman all fell to this Robin King before he was finally recruited by the Batman Who Laughs, and he even posed some resistance to that guy. All this from an untrained Bruce Wayne. It's too much.
Number 7. Mangaverse. There have actually been a few different universes that involve manga, and in fact a few different Marvel mangas that I myself have stumbled upon in bookshops. I really want to read the Deadpool manga if I'm being honest. But for this list we're focusing on Earth 2301, also known as the Mangaverse. The main one, that is. The Mangaverse first appeared in 2002 in Marvel Mangaverse New Dawn issue number 1. Although I actually think there was an earlier version of it that did appear, but I think they kind of reset it and like changed the number a little bit. So yeah, it's been going on since the early 2000s though, which is quite some time. And also, what a time. I feel like that's when I started getting into manga, the early 2000s, so makes sense to me. Number 6. What if World War II was fought in outer space? A classic what if tale, one that imagines what if Sergeant Nick Fury fought World War II all the way up in space. And of course, instead of the fight being just against the Axis and Germany, the Howling Commandos in this issue are also taking on aliens. This alternate reality comes from the 1977 What If series in issue number 14. This is the first volume of What If. In issue number 14, the reality comes to be as the answer to the question, what if Sergeant Nick Fury had fought World War II in outer space? The aliens in question that they are also fighting here are known as the Baytans, who have joined forces with Baron Strucker. This issue seems to be inspired by a love of other prominent sci-fi properties of the time, including Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars, which are also both mentioned on the cover. Good way to get you to read the comic. They're like, do you like these things? You'll like this what if! Number 5. Marvel Anime. I don't know what's weirder, really. The Mangaverse of Marvel or the anime universe, which also exists. That's right, Marvel made anime versions of some of their most famous characters. The anime universe did not last long though, only having one season that was 12 episodes long, because yes, this is an actual anime I'm talking about. It ran from 2010 to 2011. Honestly, I kind of want to watch all of it after seeing only like a little part of the first episode. It is very anime, right down to the intro, and also some of this animation looks pretty good, I gotta say. The first episode is about Iron Man, whose origin is more in line with his MCU one than his comic book counterpart here. In this reality, Iron Man is basically looking to retire and is kind of looking into building armor suits that he could use to replace him. However, when the villain Scorpio appears on the scene, he is forced to take action as the hero, Iron Man. Number 4. Captain America married Iron Man. Or rather, I guess I should say Iron Woman? In this reality, Tony wasn't Tony, but instead was born Natasha Stark, being born a woman. Natasha would grow up to become the hero Iron Woman and would actually fall in love with Captain America, and eventually marry him. Because of the success of their romantic relationship, the first Civil War never happened in this reality. There was a superhero registration program, however, but no one argued over it, and it was actually started by this universe's Reed Richards. This Earth is known as Earth 3490 and is an alternate one that Mr. Fantastic glimpses while perusing various realities where the first Civil War had a different outcome. Number 3. Marvel Apes, also known as the Apeverse or the Monkeyverse. Monkeyverse. In this reality, all the heroes and villains of Earth that you are used to seeing are all apes or monkeys. Also, heroes and villains actually die in this reality. In fact, if a villain is captured and brought to justice, they are demanded to reform, and if they actually choose to refuse that, they end up being beaten by heroes until they are, well, permanently defeated, let's just say. Also, the Captain America of this universe ended up being frozen in an iceberg and replaced by Baron Blood. So in this reality, the invaders were actually all transformed into vampires. Years later, Gorilla Captain America is thawed and must join the fight against the vampires of the world. It's got apes, it's got monkeys, it's got vampires, it's got everything. Captain America teams up with the Ape Vengers and after defeating the vampire invaders, takes on the role of team leader. Number 2. Avengers Mech Strike. The Mech Strike universe is just an odd one because in this universe, all the Avengers operate with mechs. Oh, and they had to team up with Thanos in an effort to stop Kang. Oh, and in this reality, Kang wiped the floor with Thanos. When you think about it, all of these things are pretty weird occurrences. However, I will say I do like the look of the mechs in this universe. Truly, the designs here feel like something I want to own in a collectible form of some kind. I have some of the mech Lego sets from Marvel and Lego, and I feel like the Mech Strike reality in and of itself would make for a cool series of sets, or you know, maybe one giant set with all of the mechs in it. That would be pretty cool. The reason that the Avengers in this reality get mechs in the first place is because they figure out the best way to defeat Kang's biomechanoids is to suit up up in their own vibranium mech suits that Iron Man dubs biomechanoid response units. Although I gotta be fair and also mention that T'Challa was actually the one to figure this out, so basically, good job Black Panther, you figured it out! Vibranium, it's the way to defeat them. Number 1. Marville. What a weird comic. In this story, we get to see what happens when you take a bunch of inside jokes and try to turn them into a cohesive story, or something? I think that's what is meant to be happening in this miniseries, but don't quote me. This miniseries is confusing, even for advanced comic book readers like myself who have read tons of comics at this point. In this comic, a lot of strange things happen, but it seems it's all done to make fun of the Marvel and DC universes, the whole superhero genre in general, and the distinguished competition, aka DC Comics. However, that doesn't mean that anything here makes sense. In fact, I can't make sense of almost any of it. This alternate reality takes place in the future in the year 5002 AD. Here, the AOL company basically becomes powerful enough to lead the planet, I think. People can also seemingly karate chop meteors as they fall from the sky, and eventually we travel back in time to discover that Wolverine started off the whole human race after evolving from an otter. That's really what happens in it, I think. That's what I got. Number 10. Amalgam. The Amalgam Universe is one of my all-time favorites when it comes to odd Marvel worlds. It exists as a bridge between both the Marvel Multiverse and the DC Multiverse. To this day, I still cannot believe Amalgam was allowed to happen. And it gives me hope that maybe one day we could see a live-action crossover film or TV series between the big two publishers of Marvel and DC. The Amalgam Universe first appeared in a series of 12 one-shots that were all part of the DC Marvel crossover event. Right near the end, they all kind of came in. The Amalgam Universe doesn't have one designated number, as both Marvel and DC have their own assigned numbers for this Earth. Also, the Amalgam Universe only existed in print for 2 short years, from 1996 to 1997. Rest in peace. However, I still hope to one day see its return in print or on the big screen. Fingers crossed. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love the Marvel Multiverse, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Miles and Gwen married. I love this reality. It's one that might seem odd though when you think about what is actually able to happen here. In reality 8, 2 heroes from different worlds ended up in a relationship and they settled down and even got married. This reality is believed to be an alternate future of Earth 65, where Gwen hails from normally. Here, Miles and Gwen ended up getting married, settling down, and even having kids together. They are also both celebrities in this world thanks to their superhero status as both Spider-Man and Spider-Woman respectively. Their 2 kids also grow up to become superheroes, joining this Earth's multiversal superhero Spider-Verse team, the Amazing 8. The team includes the whole family, both Miles and Gwen and their children, Spider-Boy and Spider-Girl, as well as Spider-Ham, Spider, aka Penny Parker, an alternate version of Jerry Drew, son of Spider-Woman Jessica Drew, and an alternate Spider-Woman who is also an alternate Kraven, or possibly a member of the Kravinoff clan. Number 8. Earth X. This is an interesting one. Thank you to Zocker JHD for the suggestion on the part 1 in this series, and for reminding me of this amazing world. Earth X is a really dramatic world with some really beautiful artwork from Alex Ross. Earth X was created by both Ross and Jim Krueger. In this reality, everything ties back pretty much to the Celestials, Deviants, Eternals, superpowered humans, mutants, Inhumans, even Mephisto ties back to the Celestials here. Here, Mar-Vell ends up acquiring power through Kronos. This grants him cosmic awareness, which allows him to see the full extent to which the Elders of the Universe and the Celestials were involved in manipulating the entire cosmos. He allows himself to die so that he can enact a plan to stop the Elders. Eventually, Mar-Vell is granted the Enigma Force, even in death, and sets out to stop the meddling of the Celestials and the Elders, planning to free all those who have died by killing the Elder Death. Because yeah, Death is an Elder of the Universe here. Number 7. Marvel Zombies. While it might seem kind of atypical to pick Marvel Zombies for this list, it still is a world that I cannot believe exists. It's so terrifying. What's more, I can't believe this is a project we could be seeing reimagined as an animated or even live action series, as Marvel did announce that it would be coming to Disney+. That's right, we're supposed to get a Marvel Zombies series, I believe. Of course, I haven't really heard anything since that announcement that it was going to be coming and that it would be written by Zeb Wells, but I'm still super intrigued by the idea even of this adaptation. Marvel Zombies is a surprisingly gruesome, brutal, and bloody world in Marvel Comics, so it's definitely a weird one. Number Number 6. Loom World. Loom World is an interesting place. One, this is actually known as Earth 001, which is odd because the number 1 would imply it's more original in its existence than other Earths, including the main comic book continuity of Earth 616, which, you know, is the main one, so you'd think that would be one. And it's also the home of the Inheritors, who are basically cosmic multiversal energy vampires. However, it also kind of makes sense that this is considered Earth 001. Ashur and Gaia, powerful gods, once resided here along with many other gods and goddesses. Earth 001 was then the nexus of the multiverse. They tasked their daughters to basically come up with a system that they might use to map out the multiverse, since, you know, that was the nexus. Their daughter, Shathra, created the Great Hive, while their daughter Neith created the Great Web. Between the two, Neith's design was preferred. However, this caused Shathra to rage. Becoming consumed by her jealousy, Shathra turned monstrous and became focused on devouring the protectors of the multiverse, who we'd come to know as spider totems. That's the story of the Spider-Verse. Well, not entirely, but that's a part of it. Number 5. Magical Girl. Not the name of this reality, but it's what I'm calling it. The original Penny Parker is already a wild enough and super cool character in the Marvel multiverse. But of course, Marvel had to go even further with this alternate version of Spider-Man by also making an alternate version of this alternate, turning her into a magical girl? In Marvel's Contest of Champions, there is an alternate version of Penny who is said to hail from Earth 23. In this reality, she met a magical creature which granted her powers, turning her into a magical guardian and warrior. She fights against evil with the power of friendship and love. Sound familiar to you? Initially, the Earth she hailed from, Earth 23, was also known as the Mangaverse, which would make sense, but the number for the Mangaverse would actually later be changed to Earth 2301. So now Earth 23, I guess, is just like another Mangaverse, but only in Contest of Champions, is a thing. Number 4. Ruins. Probably one of, if not the bleakest Marvel universes in existence. Ruins leaves me reeling every time I return to it. What can be said of this reality that I haven't said already? It was made to be kind of the antithesis to the normal Marvel fare, the opposite of the main continuity, if you will, and really, it did succeed there. No power comes without some level of disturbing sacrifice or tragedy in Ruins, which is what makes it so terrible, but also, in a way, kinda great because it is very different. I don't know if it's different in a good way though. Number 3. Doctor Who Universe. Doctor Who actually exists in the Marvel multiverse, if you can believe that. This is because back in the 80s, Marvel actually published a series based on the famous television series of the same name. The comic was known as Doctor Who Monthly. The universe in Marvel that the Doctor exists in and hails from is known as Earth 5556. And while Doctor Who may now be a property whose comics are published by Titan Comics, the fact still remains that because Marvel did have the rights in the 80s, technically the Doctor does exist in the ever-expanding Marvel multiverse. Somewhere out there, the Doctor's running around, working on timey-wimey, time-traveling stuff, which is pretty wild to think about. And within that series itself, other alternate universes were also explored that are likely also tied to the main Marvel Doctor Who universe, the continuity, the Earth of 5556. So in a way, there is like a Doctor Who multiverse that exists within the Marvel multiverse. Multiverses on multiverses. And there you go. There's a single multiverse at least that exists within a multiverse. Woo! Number 2. Hostess Snacks. If you can believe it, there is a whole reality based off of the advertisements in Marvel Comics. That's right, that's a thing! The Hostess Snacks advertisements. This is a wonderful world where heroes simply use snacks to defeat their villains, who are often all just kind of riled up because they're hungry. That tends to be part of the themes of the stories often. Sad, really, but I get it. When I get really hungry, I know I definitely feel like a pull towards the dark side is coming from within my stomach, and I am drawn towards committing crimes. I have to resist. I reach for that Hostess snack. I'm like, I feel better. In this reality, heroes would use various Hostess snacks to appease and often redeem their enemies. Sadly, not every character here lived a happy life, and the golden sponge cake alternate Spider-Man of this reality did end up being one of the many who was killed during Spider-Verse by the evil inheritor known as Morlun. So sad. If you aren't certain what an inheritor is, they're the cosmic energy vampires I was talking about earlier with Loom World. In fact, the Earth and realm ends up as their headquarters after they force the Master Weaver to do their bidding. The reality of Earth 001, not the Hostess Cakes reality. Although that would be pretty funny if they were like, you know what, why don't we just chill here. We got all the Hostess Snacks we could need. Too bad we don't eat them because we're energy vampires. We really only eat like spider totems, but yeah. Number 1, America's Best Comics. This one was actually super interesting to me, as it actually ties back to some comic book history, which I personally really love diving into myself, so I'm gonna take you on a journey with me. This Earth is known as Earth 10 in the Marvel Multiverse, but I'm still not sure if it's ever been like officially designated as Earth 10, so this may be actually an unofficial alternate Earth mentioned outside of Marvel. I mean, normally we have a temporal reality number or a temporary reality number when it isn't official, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I did some research into this and I was only able to find out so much, so if you know more, share with me in the comments. Earth 10 is what I could find this world designated as, official or not, as being the home of America's Best Comics, which was actually a Wildstorm imprint created by Alan Moore, which is pretty crazy to think. Now Wildstorm is an imprint at DC, but before Wildstorm was its own thing, and then America's Best Comics was an imprint there. America's Best Comics had multiple series under its umbrella, one of them being, get this, a comic called Top 10, which was not a series about this channel, but instead a unique take on a police procedural, which took place in a city where everyone had superpowers, a sort of like citywide kind of retirement community for superheroes from across the multiverse, across the Omniverse you might even say. Among those spotted there was Marvel's famous Wolverine, whether the Wolverine from the main continuity or the Wolverine of Earth 10 or the Wolverine from somewhere else, we don't really know. The other interesting thing is that DC characters also apparently appeared, although I'm not sure if any of the characters to appear from the big two, at least not initially, were actually official, or if they were just characters that looked very similar, but you know, we never really said their names. DC would end up acquiring Jim Lee's Wildstorm, and with it Alan Moore's imprint of America's Best Comics, or ABC as it's sometimes referred to. This was controversial as well at the time, as Moore had actually sworn at that point to never work with DC again, but apparently Lee had only found that out after he had made the deal with DC. Fortunately for Lee, Moore wasn't too bothered by the decision and managed to accept it and kind of roll along, even though it went against what he had initially said. He was able to move forward from it. America's Best Comics, or the ABC Universe as it is often known, still apparently exists today as the alternate reality of Earth 25 over at DC, which definitely makes sense since, you know, they kind of also bought that, and the alternate world of Earth 10 over at Marvel, which, as I said, I'm still a little, I don't really know what's official and what's not. Woo! Now I need to go back and read Top 10. Sounds super cool.
Number 10. Hyperion. Hyperion is basically Marvel's first ever answer to DC's Superman. There are a few different versions of Hyperion from across the Marvel comics, but as a brief summary, originally he was from Earth 712. He was the last surviving member of the Eternals, and he comes to Earth and is raised by a family called the Miltons. He takes the name Marcus Milton. Eventually he moves to Cosmopolis, becomes a newspaper cartoonist, and joins the Squadron Supreme. Yes, he is basically Superman. There's a story where he does battle with an evil clone version of himself created by the Grand Master. There is also a King Hyperion who basically destroys all the most powerful beings in the universe and takes over the Earth. That's obviously a villain, but it just shows how astronomically powerful this hero can be. The version of Hyperion who has most recently shown up is the Hyperion from Earth 13034. His Earth was destroyed by an incursion and he's pulled to 616. But what are his powers? Well, he is strong enough to hold two colliding universes apart for a short period of time, so there's that. He has super speed, durability, and stamina. He can fly, he has X-ray vision, heat vision, super intellect. I promise this isn't a list of Superman's powers. Number 9. Cosmic Iron Man. Tony Stark as a god with his great sense of humor should be fantastic, but it's honestly a little scary. After Iron Man is imbued with the power cosmic, he becomes the Iron God, and one of the first things he does is do battle with the also power cosmic powered Korvac. These two are literally throwing moons and planets at each other during their fight. That is, until Iron God transports Korvac to a destroyed universe and fights him until the cosmic entities show up and take Korvac away, leaving Tony to see what he does next. Iron God's goal is to make the world into a paradise, to fix all of its problems. He knows that his past attempts to do this haven't gone too well and that the other heroes will likely try to stop him. But he can use the power cosmic to do whatever he wants, and since all of his ideas for helping the world were trapped in his mind, He shares his intellect and ideas with the entire population of New York, just to start. This plays out in some interesting ways. A couple stops arguing and begins thinking logically, for one. A kid at a baseball game starts talking about background radiation, and the villain Big Wheel decides to solve traffic issues using quantum mechanics. The only problem is that Tony isn't exactly the kind of guy to fully think things through or consult with others before he does things, and that also transferred to other people. Number 8. Rune King Thor. Thor is an incredibly powerful character who has been around forever, as I'm sure everyone knows. But after Odin passed away, Thor became the king of Asgard, and he sucked. He did a lot of unking-like things. But to fix all that, he uses time travel to go back and just reverse it all. But now Loki has orchestrated a whole thing, resurrecting Surtur and Ragnarok, creating new hammers and attacking Asgard, ending the lives of many significant Asgardians and just being a real pain in the bum. Thor is visited by the personification of the Odin Force in the form of a little kid who tells Thor he needs to gain wisdom. So to do that, Thor follows after his late father and goes to the Well of Mimir, sacrificing both of his eyes and drinking from the well in order to gain the knowledge that Ragnarok is an endless cycle. He then goes to Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and hangs himself there until he actually passes away. Doing this imbues him with rune magic, which gives him knowledge of the future and the past and the ability to control the present. And he's saved by Odin's spirit before his soul can be claimed by Hela. He returns to Earth with both the Odin Force and this new rune magic. Using these forces, he is able to erase the man god from existence with a single touch. That's one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse that even Odin was afraid of. He defeats all the forces of Loki, including Loki himself. He recreates his hammer and uses it to literally destroy reality with a single swing.
At number 7 is Spider-Rex. You probably saw Spider-Rex cameo in the Spider-Verse movie, but for those of you who haven't read his Origins comic, it begins in a prehistoric Earth where a T-Rex named Norman. Just as a Norman Osborn dinosaur was about to take a bite out of Parker, bam! A meteorite crashes down, and it's not your ordinary space rock. It's filled with alien spiders. These cosmic arachnids do something wild. They actually swap Norman and Peter Parker's bodies and give them some spiffy costumes to boot. Now Norman's mind is in the pterodactyl thing, and vice versa. Chaos ensues as they try to figure out their newfound powers. Parker, now a T-Rex with spider abilities, takes on Norman and his gang, realizing the responsibility that comes with his newfound strength. At number 6 is Otterman. Kal-El, the son of Ted Turner and Jane Fonda, time travels from the 51st century to good old 2002 using a makeshift time machine made of PlayStation 1 parts and Atari controllers. Why? Because his hometown is being obliterated by meteors, of course. Now once Kal-El arrives in the present, he just kinda does stuff. And let me tell you folks, there is nothing in this storyline that connects to anything else, and none of it makes a lick of sense. Occasionally some familiar Marvel heroes drop by and also do stuff, but guess what? None of that makes sense either. But the piece de la resistance is Kal and his group go way back to 100,000 BCE, where they witness an otter evolving into none other than Wolverine, the mutant hero we all know and love. That's right, an otter. And it turns out that this otter is the father of the entire human race. Yeah, somebody actually wrote this. So if you're up for a ride that defies all logic and reason, give Marsville a whirl. At number 5 is Spider-May. Instead of Peter Parker, Aunt May gets the radioactive spider bite. Yeah, Granny became a superhero. Talk about winning bingo night. May, just like Parker, initially thinks about cashing in on her newfound powers, trying to use them to earn some extra money, which is pretty relatable. But here's the twist. She eventually decides to use her abilities for good all on her own without Uncle Ben having to drop any wisdom bombs. The result? Uncle Ben lives a long, happy life. No, with great power comes great responsibility talk needed. It's like a heartwarming alternate universe that makes you think about the ripple effects of every decision in the Marvel multiverse. And number 4 is Steve Rogers. There's this universe where the Purple Man, the Marvel mind control villain, not to be confused with the purple guy from FNAF, rises to power in America, wiping out all the superheroes. Only Captain America remains, determined to stand against the tyranny. But the twist? Purple Man sends Cap back in time to the 17th century, specifically 1602, where he presumably won't do anything to foil his plans. Clearly the man has never read a comic book. Now in the past, we find a very acclimated Steve Rogers staying with Native Americans. Taking on the name Rogers, he strangely adopts the stilted speech patterns stereotypically associated with Native Americans in less enlightened times. It's an uncomfortable uncomfortable aspect of the story, highlighting the problematic portrayals of the past. However, amidst the discomfort, there is a silver lining: dinosaurs. Yep, you've heard me right. In this Marvel multiverse, dinosaurs roam alongside our time-displaced hero, because I guess they never went extinct in this reality. So at least there are some epic dinosaur battles to juxtapose the cringe. Dinosaurs are always cool, no matter the timeline. At number 3, Milady, 'Tis the Clobbering Hour. The multiverse, already a mind-bending realm of infinite possibilities, gets an extra layer of crazy thanks to Mr. Fantastic's curiosity. He's on a quest to find versions of Earth where the whole superhuman registration act debacle didn't turn into a civil war. But wouldn't you know it, a pesky power outage messes everything up, and bam, reality is on the fritz. Now in this topsy-turvy multiverse mishap, you've got the Invisible Woman, but she's no longer the ordinary Sue Storm. No, now she's Queen Storm, and she's ruling over a medieval world with an iron grip. Her trusty sidekicks are her brother and the Thing. But hold on to your spandex, or shall I say unstable particles, because thanks to Mr. Fantastic's meddling, this universe ends up merging with others, giving us a collab between these guys and Fantastic Four versions that are pirates, cowboys, and World War II soldiers. It's a freaking crossover of the century. At number 2 is Marvel's Zombies Destroy. We all know about the Marvel Zombies universe, where we get to see our favorite heroes eating each other, but it's not the only Marvel Zombies reality in the multiverse. There's a mind-bending storyline released in 2012 which explores a chilling alternate reality where the Axis powers emerged victorious in World War II, but by doing so in a horrifying way. You see, they did so by becoming ravenous zombies. Now picture this: zombie fascists, not content with consuming just our world, but now hungry for multiversal domination. Enter the unlikely duo of Howard the Duck and good old Earth's Dum Dum Dugan, tasked with preventing this nightmarish invasion. And since our main continuity remains uninfested by the undead Third Reich, I'm gonna take a guess and say they succeeded. At number 1 is realism. Superhero comics often dive headfirst into fantastic realms filled with magic, aliens, and some questionable science. But what if we injected a dose of realism into the mix? Warren Ellis did just that in 1995 with Ruins, a 2-part story that brutally dissected the real-life consequences of radioactive spider bites and massive radiation exposure. Now picture this: instead of transforming into the mighty Hulk, Bruce Banner succumbs to cancer. Professor X, rather than leading the X-Men, uses his secret mental powers to become the president, who brutally suppresses mutants. There's no escape from the agony. Every beloved Marvel character is either already deceased, on their way to becoming deceased, or wishing they were deceased. It's a colossal downer, no sugarcoating it. This twisted take on the Marvel multiverse brings a stark reminder that even in the world of heroes, reality can be unforgiving and grim. At number 10, what if JJ adopted Peter Parker? In this world, John Jonah Jameson, known for his fiery hatred of Spider-Man, actually becomes Peter Parker's adopted father. In this alternate reality, tragedy strikes as Jameson's son's Mars expedition ends in catastrophe, leading him to take Peter under his wing after the loss of Aunt May in the same accident. Jameson's wealth and influence catapult Peter into a world of privilege, sending him to the prestigious Phillips Academy and making him the assistant editor of the Reviel, Jameson's weekly newspaper. However, Jameson's obsession with Spider-Man remains intact, blaming the web slinger for the rocket crash due to the discovery of his webbing at the scene. This obsession leads to the creation of the Spider Slayer robot and the Scorpion suit, along with a hefty bounty on Spider-Man's head. When Flash Thompson becomes the Scorpion in a misguided attempt to protect Spider-Man, chaos ensues, and Peter eventually reveals his secret identity in a fit of anger. What follows is a twist in the tale as Jameson, realizing the consequences of his vendetta, remotely piloted the Spider Slayer to save Peter from a group of supervillains. In a surprising turn of events, Jameson and Peter form an unlikely superhero duo operating out of the Daily Bugle. In the end, the thought of expanding Jameson and Son Heroes for Hire as a coast-to-coast superhero franchise lingers in Jameson's mind despite Peter's attempts to dissuade him. This is a character arc for the ages, you guys. At number 9, Jessica Jones joins the Avengers. Don't hold your breath if you want to see Jessica Jones in the Avengers, because apparently that only happens in one universe, and the way it happens, super freaking weird. In this reality, Jessica Jones doesn't have that immunity to Purple Man's mind control powers, and so after making her do terrible things for like 8 months, he eventually decides to finally use her against Daredevil. Somehow she gets confused and goes to the Avengers mansion instead and attacks a similarly dressed Scarlet Witch. The Avengers knock her around senselessly until she wakes up in the hospital after spending weeks in a coma, and the Avengers are apparently so ashamed that they decide to extend an offer to join the team. Seriously, that's how she joined the team. Not her insane investigative skills or the fact that in this reality she's mastered the power of flight and strength. Nope, they gave her a pity invite because they were impressed she survived the beating. Good lord. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8, Kang nukes Earth. In the very first page of this Avengers issue, Storm is introduced as an Avenger, but unfortunately, this crossover is very short-lived. Hercules and Colossus are there too, but not for long. Iron Man finally shows up and gives a gift to the president, but there's a disturbance in the crowd as what looks to be like Tony Stark attempts to rush the president, warning that Iron Man is an imposter, and oops, too late. The president yanks the box open and the miniature nuke goes off, wiping out the Avengers and leveling the entire city, all according to Kang's plan, who had been wearing Iron Man's suit. But what Kang didn't account for was the fact that US forces immediately retaliated to what they presumed to be a Soviet attack, thus sparking a thermonuclear war of which Kang was the sole survivor. Not much left to conquer now, eh buddy?
Number 7. Hercules during Chaos War. Hercules is an incredibly powerful Olympian who is on par with, if not stronger than, Thor. But one of his most powerful moments was during the events of Chaos War when the Chaos King attacked. Amadeus Cho becomes a god, but he's mortal and cannot handle it, so he transfers the power to Hercules. Now with this power, Hercules leads a team against the Chaos King. He's able to fly, teleport, and release energy from his hands and eyes. His strength was amped up to incredible levels. His footsteps created shockwaves, and he was even able to come out on top in a confrontation with the Council of Godheads, which is basically a group made up of the chief deities of all the different pantheons. He could summon Galactus and Eternity against their will, and defeated a Chaos King Zeus, who just defeated Galactus with a single punch. He could give others power too, giving all the heroes the power of flight. He could grow to the size of a planet to fight the Chaos King with his fists, eventually defeating him. But to close out the story, Hercules uses his power to undo all the crazy stuff that the Chaos King did, and he became mortal again. But damn, he was powerful. Number 6. Rachel Summers. Rachel here is from the Days of Future Past storyline, and she is another of the mutant children of Jean Grey and Scott Summers. She has access to the Phoenix Force and was raised in the Xavier Institute and becomes the partner of the future version of Franklin Richards. After she was kidnapped by soldiers who had taken out everyone else in her house, Rachel became a mutant hound, using her psionic powers to hunt down other mutants for the authorities. They branded her face with an irremovable pattern of tattoos to mark her as a hound and forced her to wear a leash. Rachel took out mutants, some of which were people she loved. Rachel's grief and shame from what she did as a hound and the deaths of her parents and friends made her a pretty dark character, even after she broke her brainwashing. She's one of the most powerful psychics in the entire Marvel Universe, and that's the case before she became the one true Phoenix and had its cosmic powers. As Phoenix, Rachel's abilities are enhanced to their ultimate levels, limited only by her force of will and her imagination. She literally becomes the cosmic entity, the Phoenix. Number 5. Franklin Richards. When Reed Richards and Sue Storm had a child together, a whole bunch of cosmic tomfoolery went on, resulting in Franklin Richards, the baby, being born with powers to alter matter on a universal scale. So in other words, he can basically manipulate reality on a cosmic level, which is an insane amount of power for a kid to wield. He's put mental blocks on himself to help control this power, but that doesn't mean he can't still do a hell of a lot. Some of the things this guy has done include: when all the mutants were destroyed by Onslaught, Franklin resurrected them all and put them in a universe that he just created. When Abraxas killed all the versions of Galactus, Franklin resurrected him. He's also resurrected Galactus and literally made him his herald. Recently, it was revealed that instead of being a mutant, Franklin actually altered every cell within his own body to appear like he had the X gene to fit in a bit more with the mutants. There is even a fan theory that Franklin Richards controls the Marvel Multiverse to stop characters from aging throughout the many years they have been around, and it's honestly possible. Number 4. Doctor Strange. When looking at the rest of the characters on this list, it's kind of hard to see why the heck Doctor Strange is showing up here. And that's fair. Looking at his abilities in the MCU and even the comics past the point of 2009, he's not that strong. But before that time, Doctor Strange was an incredibly powerful character. So powerful that Marvel needed to depower him. He could easily defeat pretty much any foe before this time. So basically, Doctor Strange's only real power is his ability to use magic and magical artifacts. But since he was so good at that, he could basically do anything he wanted to. Flight, time travel, telepathy, shields, astral projection, teleportation, all of these using spells and artifacts. He has survived being close to a star and has caused that star to collapse into a black hole. He has summoned cosmic entities and imprisoned and defeated the In-Betweener. He's altered the fabric of the universe. He's trapped the Beyonder and undone the things the Beyonder had done when he warped reality. He's broken out of a spell cast by the Living Tribunal, and he has even become Death. He's defeated Dormammu, Nightmare, and Shumagorath on a regular basis. It may be surprising that he's on this list, but it shouldn't be. Number 3. Nate Gray. For a guy named X-Man, he's gotta be a powerful character. And he is. Nate Gray comes from the Age of Apocalypse timeline. He was created by Mr. Sinister using the DNA of both Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. There are a few characters who are a child of these two mutants, namely, there's Cable. Now Cable has huge psionic abilities, but because of being infected by the techno-organic virus, almost all of his energy goes towards keeping himself alive. Nate Gray is basically Cable, but without that limitation. When he first came into the 616 reality, he was able to hide himself from Cerebro, which is supposed to be impossible. He is described as being on the same level of Jean Grey harnessing the Phoenix Force, which is one of the greatest threats the X-Men and the world has ever faced, and he is described as an Omega level living god. He can read the minds of others, he can sense the emotions and histories left on objects, he can detect rifts in space and time, he can move into the astral plane where he can see the future, and after he had a bit of practice, he could even increase the power of other mutants. He has cured cancer, destroyed cities on the other side of the Earth during a nightmare, manipulated matter to a cosmic scale, and traveled through space and time. He is basically mutant Jesus. Look at him. Number 2. Adam Warlock. First appearing in 1967 in Fantastic Four number 66, Adam Warlock was created by the Enclave, who were experimenting to create a perfect human specimen. This made him super strong, durable, fast, and he can store and use huge amounts of cosmic energy to make him fly, release blasts, and all kinds of things, including cocooning himself to help him heal and regenerate. Now every time he does this though, he actually comes out more powerful than when he went in, and he evolves new powers. He is also able to use quantum magic, which lets him teleport, make force fields, and move at the speed of light, create wormholes, resurrect himself and others, has cosmic awareness, manipulates, removes, and judges the souls of others. He has a lot of powers. He's altered the evolution of beings, he's manipulated matter, turning Thanos into stone, and then he wielded the Infinity Gauntlet. We have had Mutant Jesus, and this guy is basically Space Jesus. And one of his biggest feats is completely embarrassing the hell out of Mephisto, Marvel's most powerful demon, in his own realm. He has accidentally destroyed the entire universe, including all cosmic entities except the one above all who had to fix it all. He does have an evil persona of himself though, called Magus, but we've gone too far, so I can't wait for Disney to completely depower him to make him incredibly lame and boring in the MCU. Number 1. Cosmic Comic Spider-Man. Sometimes Marvel will make a joke character or scenario and it ends up creating a character more powerful than any other character possibly ever. In How to Read Comics the Marvel Way, issues 1-4, the comic itself becomes a character, and it starts off trying to teach the reader how exactly to read comics properly. The comic follows Spider-Man in a conflict with Mysterio, who found the Cosmic Comic, the same one speaking to us, in the basement of the Natural History Museum. It allowed Mysterio to freeze Spider-Man in time in a comic panel, turn inanimate objects to life, and increase his size. Once Spider-Man gets his spider sense back, he realizes the Cosmic Comic is influencing events, so he grabs the comic, thinking it's one of Mysterio's tricks, and tears it in half. After realizing the error of his ways, Spider-Man and Mysterio begin trying to write their own comics to use the Cosmic Comic to make their comics become reality. Thanks to the Cosmic Comic, they end up fighting across time, altering history, and Peter learns of the fact that he is a comic book character, seeing all of his comic book publication history. Taking in all this info, he fuses together with the Cosmic Comic, basically meaning he can control reality within Marvel Comics, which I think is even technically more powerful than multiversal power. He prints the comic he created, which has him saving the day and winning the battle, and it changes reality so that that's the outcome of the fight with Mysterio.